we shed some light on how the hell human ships can hover. Frequently in the games we see ships hovering in atmosphere. Covenant ships are justified as being because they have anti-gravity technology sophisticated enough to support the ship's mass in atmosphere. Ships like the UNSC Infinity are justified as being because they're newer ships, cutting edge, with Forerunner engines. Smaller ships like the Pelicans can hover due to their thrust vectoring, similar to the Harrier jump jet. Hornets and Falcons are VTOLs, or vertical takeoff and landings, and thus have downward-facing thrust vectors. But older and altogether larger ships can somehow hover in atmosphere, but humans don't have access to or don't know how to create anti-gravity technology, do they? Well, the answer comes from an unexpected source. In Halo: The Fall of Reach, right around when Dr. Halsey meets John for the first time, he says, "They don't let me play Gravball anymore because I always win." Hold it right there. Gravball is a children's game. A gravity ball is skimmed across a repulsor court. The particulars of the game hasn't really specifically been fleshed out, but the takeaway information here is that a child's game utilizes gravitic technology. Technology is generally only applied to fields such as children's toys if it is A. available to the public, B. relatively affordable, and C. a well-established and safe technology. So from this we can deduce that the UNSC most likely make extensive use of gravitic technology, but in what contexts? An anti-gravity plate, or grav plate, is a small form of anti-gravity technology developed by the UNSC. As of 2531, they were considered old technology and they were never widespread. Grav plates were designed to be attached to other objects, thereby enabling them to float off of the ground. Notably, an anti-gravity plate was used in one instance by insurrectionists to incapacitate a group of Spartan IIs by simulating the force of 10 Gs of gravity, which caused their Mjolnir armor's compensatory mechanisms to drastically increase the internal pressure of the suits. So in 2531, this tech was considered old and not widely used. So if the UNSC could make smaller plates that produce anti-gravitons that enable objects to float, and insurrectionists can evidently tamper with this technology to create fields of 10 Gs to cripple Mjolnir armor back in 2531, at basically the start of the Human Covenant War, then surely, as with any technology during wartime, rapid innovations were made in the interim between 2531 and the 2550s. With the influx of captured Covenant technology and the efforts made by ONI's REAP-X division to reverse engineer Covenant and Forerunner technology, it is inevitable that innovations and developments were made in the fields of gravitics alongside literally dozens of others. From this we can deduce that ships like the UNSC frigates in Amber Clad and Forward Unto Dawn will have anti-gravitics drives built into their superstructure. These gravitic repulsor arrays are fitted along the ship and finely tuned to the ship's exact tonnage. Much like the grav plates, they produce a steady stream of anti-gravitics produced by an exotic process, powered directly from the ship's main reactor. Due to the high impedance value of the related transconductance of the energy-to-mass particle gravitic processing, the ship is forced to operate at a reduced power level for other systems. However, it is likely, as the technology was refined and the reactor cores and means of power production were innovated, the gravitic technology became more energy efficient, enabling the full mass of the ship to be negated when within a gravity well of a planet for very little energy cost to the ship's other processes. The system can also be operated in a traction caterpillar mode to generate limited amounts of pseudo-thrust, enabling a ship to crawl very slowly and without having to use its primary thrusters. The system is very sensitive.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation 00. Today I want to try something a little different and explore something a little more interesting about the deep lore of the Halo universe, and something very, very close to home. The origin, rise, and fall of humanity. Having evolved and achieved civilization on Earth, originally known as Erda or Ers Tyrene, humanity first became a spacefaring civilization at some point prior to 1,100,000 BCE. These early humans settled on numerous worlds along the galactic margin. These regions would be a target by the Flood's initial assault over 1 million years later. Early in their history, long before encountering the Forerunners, humanity underwent a series of technological dark ages, which left their populations scattered across many worlds and resulted in the loss of most of their records, including the knowledge of Earth being their original homeworld. It was not until much later when scientists led by Prim Prikushma confirmed that humanity had arisen on Earth. Around 150,000 BCE, humanity moved their civilization outward along the Orion Arm, possibly to flee Forerunner control. After recovering from their dark ages, humanity made the former precursor world Charam Hakor their capital to be close to one of the greatest collections of precursor structures. Humanity also formed an alliance with the Sanshayum species in order to gain access to their advanced technology. At their height, humanity's technical achievements nearly rivaled that of the Forerunners, a point which drew the attention of the higher ranking among the Forerunners. This new, powerful human civilization encountered the Flood in approximately 107,445 BCE, and went to war against the parasite after discovering its true nature. After losing many planets to the Flood, humanity desperately invaded a minor sector of the Forerunners' ecumene, ostensibly in an attempt to seize new territory to replace the worlds that had been lost, through at least some instances of seeming aggression were in fact humanity sterilizing worlds where Flood infestation had already taken hold. Nevertheless, the Forerunners responded violently to this aggression and waged war with the humans and their Sanshayum allies. The resulting conflict lasted for 1,000 years. 40 years before the last conflict between humanity and the Forerunners, a human expeditionary group encountered an ancient being held in hibernation on a planet near the galaxy's edge. Under Prim Prikushma's orders, this being, known as the Primordial, was placed in a stasis capsule and transported to Charam Hakor for study. Human researchers found a way to communicate with the entity, asking in vain for answers to various scientific and morality questions, receiving no useful responses. Instead, the being revealed disconcerting truths about humanity's origin. This was believed by some to have caused the demoralization of human culture and thus contributed to their defeat against the Forerunners. They also inquired the Primordial about the Flood. The answers they received were so traumatizing that many committed suicide. After a certain point, the Flood's rampage throughout human territory stopped. The Flood no longer infected humans and instead began to rapidly die out, with both humans and Forerunners sterilizing the remaining infections. Based on this pattern, the Forerunners came to the conclusion that humanity had discovered a cure for the Flood. According to the Forerunner records, the humans sacrificed 1/3 of their total population, implanting them with destructive, artificially programmed genes used to target the Flood on a genetic level. In reality, however, the Flood had receded by its own volition after the sacrifice. No truly functioning cure was ever created or used by humanity, though both Forerunners and humans themselves remained under such illusion. Stretched thin due to fighting 2 wars at once, the humans were finally driven to their capital of Charam Hakor. After holding off for 43 years, they were defeated at the hands of the Forerunners, led by the Didact. Before the fall of Charam Hakor, some humans suggested they should draw out the Flood and use it against the Forerunners. However, this strategy was denied as the human leadership chose to face their defeat, rather than allowing the Flood to spread. As punishment for defying the Forerunners, nearly all of humanity was wiped out, and the remnants and technological achievements of their civilization were extirpated. Furthermore, the surviving humans were subjected to a process of biological devolution. Live humans were forced to consciously experience an artificially induced reversion of their evolutionary process, to the point of their bodies transforming to their ancestral forms, and eventually losing intelligence. The remnants of the human species were exiled to Earth, where they were overseen